Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Duminal Crossing, wearing a Omega Metroid shirt, looking very dapper, if you don't mind me saying so, my friend.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Omega Metroid drip finally came in from our brand new Etsy shop that we just opened. Shameless plug, if you want to grab some of that right now, it's all live and ready to purchase. So give us your money.
What a great plug that was. That was a You've learned from the best, my friend. And we're excited today because we are joined by a very special guest. We've been we've been trying to set this up for a long time.
Why aren't you taking it? Why aren't you taking it?
Take it, dude. Reach. So we've been trying to set this up for a long time. For whatever reason, we had a bunch of scheduling issues and just, you know how that goes. But we finally got Mr. Joey Ferris on the show from GameXplain. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk about Metroid. I never played one of the games ever, so this will be... I'm just going to wing it. I'm just kidding.
That was...
In Metroid, he is a pretty cool character, gotta say.
Yeah, he can crawl. That was kind of your... That was like your gimmick, even, I think, pre-GameXplain days, right? Like, you were the Metroid guy before we had this podcast and stuff like that going on.
I was the Metroid guy for a very long time, I will say. But, you know, it's one of those weird things where I didn't realize how much I loved Metroid until, like, I don't know, my first or second year of college. It's always one of those franchises that I've played. I've really enjoyed those games. And then I realized I want another one. And it was, at that point, the last game was Other M, right? So now I'm like... And then when I went back to revisit them over time, I was just kind of like... What a great freaking series. What a fantastic series, man. It's not perfect, but it's more perfect than other franchises, I'd say. Because, you know, how many misses have they really had? Really?
I agree. We have something for both Zelda Dungeon and that I've adopted for Omega Metroid called the Metroid Scale. It's called the Zelda Scale over there. And the general idea is that, like, even the worst Metroid game is, like, still an 8 out of 10. And you kind of rate, you know, the Metroid games, like, in that scale of, like, that 8 to 10 category. And, like, pretty much every single Metroid game falls in that category. Maybe one, some people might disagree, but, you know, it's, the misses have been, fewer and far between than a lot of other big name series that have been going on for 35 years, that's for sure. 36 years, actually, at this point. All right.
It helps they don't come out as often.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Okay, so we have a cool show going on for you guys today. We are going to be talking about a potential, although I think this is definitely something that will happen, but a potential Metroid Fusion remake and what we would like to see from it. And I have a few cool ideas. But first, we should probably chat about the Game Awards. And before I turn it over to you guys, I just want to throw something out there and see if you agree with me. So I watch the Game Awards every year just because, covering it for Zelda Dungeon. And I will say, this was not a perfect show. I don't even know if I could call it a good show. However, this might have been the best Game Awards show that they've ever done. Like, the pacing was good. There was less ads. It was, credit where credit is due. It was pretty decent. What did you guys think?
I agree. And I'm more on the positive side too. It was like, I know you said like you wouldn't even call it a good show, but it was still like the best one. I still thought it was a good show. Like, and I'm someone who like falls into this cycle every year, right? We get excited about the Game Awards. Some people do, at least. I feel like most people fall into this trap of getting hyped for it, and then it winds up disappointing, and then we repeat that cycle next year, right? I didn't feel disappointed at all from this year. And I came away thinking there were some really good announcements there. And there's always this debate of, we should focus less on the world premieres and more on the awards part of it. And to an extent, yeah, I do think they should make the awards more important. But come on. You wouldn't watch the show if there weren't world premieres. Like, let's be real. Yeah. There's so many other award shows, like, Golden Joystick Awards come to mind. It's just like, who watches those? Like, nobody does, because they don't have world premieres. And it's just like, I'm tired of hearing these people say there should be less world premieres. And it's just like, you would not watch the Game Awards if there weren't.
So, Joey, I understand that you were rooting for Stray to win Game of the Year. Is that correct?
We don't talk about Stray.
Okay.
I probably hate on that game more than I should, but I just feel like, I think I wouldn't say I hate the game. I came away from it thinking that was okay. like I thought Stray was okay. It was
Right.
an okay game, but to see it like get nominated and even winning so many awards drove me insane. It's just like there's nothing special about that game.
I will say, so I haven't played it, so I can't pass any judgment on Stray, but I will say that in my worldview, I think that Tunic might have got a little bit shortchanged at this award show. That might be my game of the year, actually, like just overall.
Oh, wow.
It's a good game. Doom, what'd you think of the show? Were you awake for its entire like 4-hour runtime?
Yeah, I'm more in Joey's camp. I was like pleasantly surprised at the Game Awards this year. I mean, for me personally, it really delivered on all fronts when it comes to both the announcements, the awards show, and my God, the memes this year.
Oh
my God, the memes this year. I never thought the Joseph Ferris bit would ever be topped. I think we might have a new contender with that finale.
That was nuts. That was one of the most bonkers thing I've ever seen. And for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, the show ended with some kid just walking up with the winners or the developers of Elden Ring to accept the Game of the Year award, and he just got on the hot mic. Nobody noticed that he wasn't with anybody and started spewing off some stuff about Bill Clinton, and it was one of the most surreal things I might have ever seen.
And our boy Dak was there live, so he got to see all that unfold.
Yeah.
My goodness. Man, I'm jealous of them all because I wanted to be in the same room as Al Pacino for once in my life.
That was pretty sweet, actually. So I do have to say this. So this Game Awards was just notable in and of itself, if only for Death Stranding 2. And I love Death Stranding. I love Kojima. There's something so awesome about. There's something so charming about how crazy his games are. So I was flipping out when Death Stranding 2 was coming out. So for that alone, I'll say it's a good show.
Yeah, I still need to finish Death Stranding 1. Last year I started the PS5 version. I got about maybe 5 hours in, and
it's a tough grind. The intro, it's tough.
Yeah, it is. And a part of me is just like, I put a poll on my Twitter today as of recording this. Like, do I start it over? Do I just keep going? Because I don't imagine much. Because a lot of the intro, what I remember, because I originally played the first 10 hours of it on PS4.
Right.
I just remember the intro not progressing the story too much. Like, I'm not sure.
Really. I would even say, so the game does get crazy, like typical Hideo Kojima crazy. But I would say it takes a long time to get to that point where it's just like really bonkers. So I'm a sucker for that game. I would restart it, but the intro is rough. It's punishing, actually, would be a good word.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, oh, do I have to play the intro again? Come on, guys. I got excited by that DS2 announcement. It's called DS2. That's the official name. Yeah.
I love it.
The DS2 memes, the Nintendo DS2 memes are all over the place. And I gotta say, so we had bets on GameXplain. There was one of the bets was, will Hideo Kojima announce his new game and it isn't Death Stranding 2? Everyone except me said that it wasn't going to be Death Stranding 2. So I swept that bet, baby.
You know what? You would have beat me too, because I would have said like, no, it's going to be something new. But man, when Sam Porter Bridges popped on screen, I popped big time. I was so awesome. Yes. I wanted to shout out too a game called Earthblade by the developers of Celeste. It looks awesome. It looks like it actually might be a Metroidvania, perhaps up our alley, Doom. And Celeste was incredible. So it looked really awesome too. Anything stick out to you? I know that a lot of people were talking about Armored Core. I'm not really familiar with that series, but the trailer for that game looked sweet.
I'm a pretty casual Armored Core fan, but like I was super hyped to see it return. I mean, I haven't played Armored Core since the 360 days, and that was the last time it came out, right? The 360 days. I believe so. It's been like 10 years since the last one. So, but yeah, like. Most people on the podcast know I'm definitely more of a sci-fi guy than a fantasy guy. So when it comes to like Dark Souls and Elden Rings, it's like, that looks interesting. I'll probably play it one day. Whereas like I see Armored Core, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, like I actually have to ask you about that because it's so funny. On stream, I was like, I knew From Software made a mech game, but I forgot the name of it. So me and Andre were like, oh my god, it's Mech Warrior. Oh my god, it's I said Zone of the Enders, and I'm less like,
oh man, but I would have popped off for Zone of Enders if that was coming back. Oh,
I have that downloaded. I still need to play it.
Yeah, that would have been sick.
And I looked it up, like, the franchise, because I was curious, like, because it's been a long time. That franchise hasn't been, like, too hot with the critics, from what I understand. Like, the last game has like 65 on Metacritic. So, I guess I'm not sure. Like, I guess it's more of like for the fans than it is like the critics. But it does make me think like, what's this game gonna be like in a post like Dark Souls, post Elden Ring sort of like From Software handling it? That's gonna be curious.
I mean, it looked impressive.
That just excites
me
more than anything.
Yeah, like and like a lot of those, in my experience, I feel like a lot of those games are maybe don't have a lot of resources poured into them. But like I thought that it looked really impressive actually. Like the trailer, like I'm a big sci-fi guy too. I was just like, hell yeah, what is this? This looks great. So yeah, those are probably my biggest takeaways. And then like the just Al Pacino on stage was awesome, and
the eternal Christopher Judge acceptance speech.
It was good to see Reggie. Yeah, that was an acceptance. But you know what? Whatever. Let him have it. Who cares?
I gotta say though, Armored Core was hype, but the big announcement for me, and I'm probably the only one that cares about this because the audience was dead silent during this trailer.
I know what you're gonna say.
Valiant Hearts coming home. I never in my life would have expected this game to get a sequel. I played it for the first time last year. It's a few years old now, but I played it for the first time last year. I absolutely fell in love with it. It's such a beautiful story, set during World War I, and it's pretty self-contained. So I figured, like, okay, this is a one and done. They're never going back to this. But no, they're doing a sequel to this game, and it sounds like it's going to take place during the end of World War I by kind of what we're seeing from it. And yeah, I'm really excited for it because this is like one of the 5 Ubisoft things that I actually care about.
That's, to be fair, that's quite a few of Ubisoft things at this point, because I feel like that's all Ubisoft has are 5 franchises they pay attention to. But I never finished Valiant Hearts 1. I barely even remember it, so that's something I'm going to have to revisit. Is it out on Switch? Because I feel like I need to get it on Switch at this point.
I'm not sure if it's on Switch. I played it on Xbox.
I don't even remember what platform I played Valiant Hearts on. It was probably PC. I'm looking it up right now because I want to know. It's on Switch. It's totally on Switch.
There you go. Yeah. Cool. So I have one more question about the Game Awards before we move on, and maybe you guys can give me some advice if you've played it. So everyone loves Hades, and everyone that I've ever talked to loves that game. It's on sale right now. It's half off on the Switch. I hate roguelike games, so I don't know if I'm gonna like it. But like, should I try it? Have you guys played Hades? Like, what do you think?
I haven't tried it yet, so
I have. It's one of those games I was really into for a while. And I picked it up when it came out because I heard nothing but good things. I'm lukewarm on roguelikes. Mm-hmm. I'm not like they're not a franchise. They're not a genre like Die Hard like get into really.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Dead Cells from when I played it. I've never finished a roguelike game before. I haven't finished Hades either. Yeah, I'm not sure if you would be into it if you really hate that genre. Maybe
like I didn't even really like Dead Cells, to be honest. I was like, I don't like that the map keeps changing.
I don't know, for $10 it might be worth a shot.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I spend $15 on a lot of stupid things. Like, what's Hades?
And it's not like the levels in Hades are like, they're basically just arenas, really, from what I remember, with different paths and stuff. The loop is really addicting. It's been a really long time since I played it. I need to jump back in for Hades 2. What's really impressive, though, is how, like, the dialogue changes every loop. Like, you never run into, like... Because you run into bosses, and they'll be like, oh, I'm going to kill you, blah, 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 or whatever. Mm-hmm. The dialogue changes every single time. I have never encountered the same dialogue twice. It's very interesting.
Okay, well,
that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's on sale, so maybe I'll have to check it out. Okay, so just to put a bow on the Game Awards, credit where credit is due, probably the best one that they've done so far, I will say. So.
I still have okay, to be fair, I didn't watch all of 2014's Game Awards because I was working at the time. I don't know, I still have a soft spot for that first show. Mainly just because, like, Nintendo's involvement and showing us Zelda Wii U. I'm a little bit biased.
I think the first one I ever watched was the Breath of the Wild show where they revealed, like, the Champions ballot. So I have a soft spot for that one, but you know, like,
I was there for the Cranky Kong. I was there for the Cranky Kong and DKC Tropical Freeze.
I actually watched the Sephiroth trailer earlier today from the Game Awards. What was that, 2 years ago, where he impaled Mario? Good stuff.
That was such a hype trailer.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
That was good.
All right, so yeah, shout out to our boy Jeff Keighley for putting on a good show. Let's talk about Metroid here, fellas, and let's talk about Metroid Fusion, which, as we know, just celebrated its 20-year anniversary about a month ago, 3 weeks ago now. And we did the shows on Metroid Prime, and now, of course, we are focusing on the more atmospheric, terrifying of the Metroid titles released in November 2002, Metroid Fusion. And so we just did a retrospective last week, talked about our memories of the game. This time we are jumping into very specific things that we want to see when, not if, but when this game is being made. So maybe that's my first question that I have for you guys is like, I am pretty convinced that the next 2D Metroid game that comes out is Metroid Fusion Remake. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the Switch, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be within like the next 2 years. Do you guys, are you giving that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? What do you guys think? Joey, we'll start with you.
I'm giving it a thumbs down, only because as cool as it would be, I just don't see it happening for whatever reason. Like, over the years, Nintendo has been spoiling us Metroid fans lately, kind of, with Dread. Dread was just big, huge sort of deal. I just have learned to keep my expectations low when it comes to anything Metroid. Like not the games themselves. I always expect high quality games,
Yes.
but
the amount of those games.
The amount of those games, I'm always like, no, not gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm also somewhat in a similar camp, maybe a little more optimistic, but it's not something I would bet my money on. Let's just say that. I wouldn't be surprised if the next 2D Metroid release we got was a Fusion remake, but it's not something like if you asked me to bet money on it, I'd be like, pass on that.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. I thought I might be fighting this battle alone, so that's okay. So I'm going to use some evidence to maybe suggest why this remake could be the next game and why this idea that I have what I think would be cool. So I think it's fair to say, and we'll talk about some of the like actual like in-depth stuff. But I think it's fair to say that obviously we're going to expect better graphics, we're going to expect better music, we're going to expect certain other things. But I have an idea, and this stems from a conversation that you and I had about Metroid Dread probably about 6 weeks ago, Doom, at this point. And we were talking about how you could reuse some of those assets, and would we ever use some of it again? And so I want to pitch you something that's based on two assumptions. The first assumption is that this game comes out within like the next 2 years. And the second is that this game is developed by Mercury Steam. So my big gimmick, my big idea for a Metroid Fusion remake is this. With past remakes in the series, we have seen the world of SR388 greatly expanded. We've seen the original Metroid Planet Zebes greatly expanded. So I see no reason why that wouldn't happen with the BSL as well in Metroid Fusion. And so you and I were talking about Metroid Dread, and we were kind of discussing back and forth. Like, the E.M.M.I zone was a very cool concept. I don't know if it was utilized to the fullest extent that it could have been, and you don't really have an opportunity to bring that back if you're, for the next sequel. But that is where I might disagree. So this is my pitch. I think your core gameplay mechanic for Metroid Fusion, the remake, is you take all 6 sectors of that game, and they're going to be greatly expanded, and I'm going to say, 80% of that area is, a giant E.M.M.I zone. But we take out the E.M.M.I, we put in the SAX, it's still the same idea, one-hit kill. They already have the engine for it, so presumably it shouldn't be I'm no game developer, it probably is very difficult, but you know what I mean? It shouldn't be, as maybe difficult as it might be starting from scratch. You still do have that kind of tense atmosphere, and, for the longest time, I've heard people talking about man, they should remake Metroid Fusion like Alien Isolation, where the alien can creep up on you and kill you from any spot, and you kind of have the motion that you can track it with. I think that if you just had one ginormous E.M.M.I room, let's call it E.M.M.I room, but it'll be an SAX zone, spread across the 6 sectors. Let's just say that the main deck is off limits, but if you have if you have all those 6 SAX zones, that might be the closest way as you could possibly get to having that kind of Alien Isolation kind of atmosphere, I guess, or encounter, while repurposing something that's worked before and using it for greater effect. So I have some other ideas about this remake, but I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool, and I didn't think. I'm not going to say I think that they're going to do it, but I actually don't think that it's completely impossible that they wouldn't do this either. So I'll turn it over to you guys. What do we think of this new core mechanic idea for a Metroid Fusion sequel or remake? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I think that is certainly a good idea if there was an option to customize how I'm not sure, because I would like to. toning down how many encounters you could have with the SAX, because I don't want to really. That's what I liked about the E.M.M.I zones, is that they only were limited to a specific like part of the map. If they were following me throughout the entire map or like close to the entire map, I would get sick of that. And that's kind of where I'm at with this SAX idea. Again, though, it depends on like how big the zone is for the SAX to follow you, because I don't want to play the game like I'm playing Alien Isolation, which, to my understanding, Alien Isolation still had like moments of like, oh, I can breathe because I know the alien's done in this area, right? But that's not why I play Metroid. I play Metroid to explore, and it's not as fun to like explore if you're constantly being followed by something. And that's where my concern lies. It could be a cool feature in like a harder difficulty mode, I think, but I think like it can't be like the only option you have.
Right. And there is another drawback to that, but I want Doom, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, I actually like that proposal of like an alternate difficulty mode that like increases the appearance of like SAX and all that. I think that would actually be a really cool way to implement kind of like an Alien Isolation style type of gameplay to a Metroid title without it feeling too alienating, pun not intended. But
right.
No, you intend that pun.
Yeah, don't lie to us. Don't lie. I agree with you guys. I think that if you could do that, let's just say like your base game is. So first of all, I think that you definitely have to have certain rooms that are off limits, like obviously save stations and recharges, but like even like puzzle rooms where you have to slow down and like you have to, like you know when you're when you shoot something and the X comes out, you have to wait for it to morph to something else. I think that like if you are in a room like that, you can't have the SAX chasing you. But I think that would be very cool actually if you could, like, let's say 50% of each sector was a SAX zone, you know, on base difficulty, and then like 65% was on hard, and then, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So the proposal, the drawback with that too, is that you would probably lose those really intense moments in Fusion where you're running away from the SAX, like when you have to freeze the SAX or when he lays the power bomb, et cetera, et cetera. You could maybe try and work some of those like escape sequences in, maybe like kind of Ori-esque, I don't know, but I think that would be a sacrifice you'd have to make for the SAX to constantly be kind of after you. But yeah, I don't know, like I think it would be kind of cool, but I there's definitely some drawbacks, because you definitely do want to have the ability to explore. So, you know, there's definitely some room for improvement there, but I think as a core concept, that would be cool, because like the one thing about Metroid Fusion is it tells you like the SAX is hunting you. The SAX is hunting you over and over again, but the SAX really is never hunting you all that closely. So I think it could be cool.
So I had another approach to the SAX sequences, so I guess I'll just bring that up in my notes right now. And I kind of had a similar approach to you, somewhat, a little bit scaled down, because I also did incorporate kind of the base Fusion mechanics as well with the scripted events, just because I do think that those moments in Fusion, like the power bomb section, are like very important to contributing to Fusion's atmosphere. But one of the things that I really wanted to balance out was the first playthrough versus repeat playthroughs, and that's where I think is the hardest part of like balancing the SAX, because you have to make it you know, invigorating on your first playthrough, but without it being an annoying roadblock on repeat playthroughs. And I feel like the E.M.M.I zones really toe that line like perfectly in Dread for myself, where they do provide that nice challenge on your first playthrough, but they're not so overwhelming that you can't speed past them when you're going through them on repeat playthroughs once you start having a better understanding of how they move and whatnot. So basically what I did for this section right here is a combination of scripted and unscripted segments. Scripted segments work just like in the original, and the unscripted segments function somewhat similar to E.M.M.I zones, though the areas of patrol aren't telegraphed like in the E.M.M.I zones. Not quite to the extent of a Mr. X in Resident Evil, as that would kill the pacing and introduce too much RNG, in my opinion. But it would allow new players to still have sort of an uncertainty of like whether or not they're safe, unlike the E.M.M.I zones.
Right.
However, pro players, it would still give them the opportunity to map out the locations so that they could still speed run through the game. And I think that would be a nice compromise there.
Okay, I don't mind that. That's kind of like the other side of the coin for what I was proposing. So yeah, that's not too bad at all. I think that there should just be like an element of unpredictability where the SAX is going to come in and like incorporate the SAX into the gameplay a little bit more, because like I feel like that. And it, like, listen, we can forgive that for not being as fully fleshed out as it maybe could have been, because it's 20 years ago. But like that's not fully fleshed out. I feel like the E.M.M.I zones weren't exactly what they could have been. They were very cool, but like they weren't as tense or creepy as they could have been. I feel like we're getting somewhere.
I agree, and also you mentioned that save stations are off limits. I somewhat disagree with that. I would love a scripted. I've always wanted in a Metroid game a scripted sequence where a save station becomes an unsafe zone, because that's like that's like been a trope since, you know, I can't say the NES days because there were no save stations back then, but since save stations were a thing, they've always been like the no hurt areas, and I want one of these days just to be surprised out of nowhere for like a door to bust open and just a monster or something just attack me when I think I'm safe in a save station.
Yeah.
Okay, I can dig it. I can dig it.
I was thinking like a part of that would be frustrating because like, oh, I'm trying to save, and then the monster comes in, you lost all that data beforehand. But nowadays Metroid games, they have like checkpoints now.
Yep.
Thank goodness. Thank you, developers. But yeah, that's what makes me think, okay, yeah, I'm with you there, because that would be really cool. I think they said that was going to be the case with Resident Evil 3 remake, was that Nemesis was supposed to like come into the save stations. I don't know if that wound up happening. I also don't think Nemesis was that much of a threat up being in that
I don't
game.
remember that happening, but who am I?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah. I think they had promises for that game that didn't happen. So
okay, well, so it seems like we all agree that we want to spice up the SAX a little bit here in this remake, and spice up maybe how those encounters take place. So I think that, like, as a core gameplay idea, like reusing the E.M.M.I zones, I kind of like it, just because, like, again, I feel like it's already there, it's already built. We can maybe tweak it to take out the E.M.M.I to put in the SAX. So I think that just in terms of like practically speaking, they could maybe like expedite this if they decided to go that route with it. And then of course, like I do think that, so one of the things about Metroid Fusion is like all 6 sections are fairly small, like comparatively speaking to other Metroid games. I think that those 6 sections definitely need to go through some sort of expansion, which I'm sure that they will. I have no doubt that that would happen if if this game were to get remade.
I hope so too. Assuming a remake does happen, and I also kind of want to bring it a little back to the SAX too. Like, I also don't want them to give us too much of the SAX, because a lot of what made the SAX like so creepy and scary is just like, oh my goodness, like less is more basically. And but I also am kind of with you there too. It should also have more of a presence, perhaps. What I didn't like about the E.M.M.I zones was like the background music, just in general. Metroid Dread's music is kind of like but and just the little beeping noises that were made in those sections, I didn't think it was particularly scary. I want them to like keep the theme of the SAX going, that like atmospheric sort of hum that played in the background in those sections. I think could really make keep the fear of the SAX strong, because man, oh man, that thing was scary.
What about this?
The E.M.M.I zone music is actually some of the few music I actually enjoyed in Metroid Dread, weirdly enough. But yeah,
That's funny.
Okay, what about that? Hold on, what about this? So we got the SAX zones, okay? And let's just say that to kind of bring up what Joey was saying, but like you don't always want to feel like the SAX is like right over your head. What if, I think we could all agree that one of like the most terrifying moments of Metroid Fusion is the first time you hear those footsteps, and like you hear the SAX is right by you. What if you're in these E.M.M.I zones and like you can hear footsteps and like they're faint, but suddenly they're growing louder, and then like if they're really loud, like the SAX is nearby, like I got to be a little bit more cautious. If you can't hear any footsteps, then like, okay, maybe it's not anywhere close. That might be a decent compromise. I don't know how they would do that.
Kind of like the Mr. X footsteps.
Yeah.
Like that.
I think that would be cool. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of digging that.
Be cool. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd be super down for 100%.
That.
All right.
Or you can hear like a screw attack in the background if it's like doing a somersault or something like
beam.
that.
Oh, I think we got it. Yeah, I think we got it. Let's mail this episode to Nintendo as soon as we're done.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'll call my uncle right away.
yeah. That's weird. My uncle works there too.
So does mine. How strange. Do we have the same uncle?
Shigeru Spiteri, is that your uncle?
Oh my god.
Okay, so yeah, I think we're cooking with this SAX idea, and I think that would be like a really cool like gameplay mechanic. But of course, that's not the only thing that I want to see in a remake. I would love to see, and we could just kind of trade back and forth here. But I would really love to see. We're just talking about the expanded sectors. I think it's like very critical that there are more like access points between sectors that open up earlier in the game. Because in Metroid Fusion, one of the things that I don't care for in the game is like you go into a sector, you do your gambit of recharge rooms, navigation rooms, or whatever, and it's really like the only entry in and entry out until like the game is essentially over. At that which point there's like one connector tube to one sector behind you. Maybe they could put in some teleporter statues or I don't know something, but I want to be able to like freely travel between sectors. I think that's important.
I think that's a given. I think that's totally what should happen and what could happen. Metroid Fusion, like it feels like, I don't want to say it feels like the most linear Metroid game because it's not. Other M, how you doing? But Fusion, I felt like I really felt the path like I don't know if I'm making sense here, but it really feels like there is a set path more so than like other games in the series that I've noticed at least.
For sure.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I would call, and I don't use this as like a negative term, but I mean, I think Metroid Fusion is absolutely like a very linear Metroid game. Certainly more so than almost every other game in the series, which like isn't bad, but again, maybe not exactly how we might choose to play Metroid.
Yeah. And a lot of Metroid games start out that way too. Like you have a very limited path at first. Even Dread like felt super linear at first, right?
Even Super Metroid.
Yeah,
I mean, you basically have to follow the path right to the morph ball. Now, once you've got that, then you're kind of off to the races. But I would agree with that, and I think that is another thing. Like I would expect that to be in the game as much as I would expect expanded sectors in the game as well.
Of course, and I've never felt the need to explore in Fusion that much. I don't know if it's just me, but yeah, I always felt like whenever I played that game, okay, stick to the path. I don't feel like going back and finding more missiles or anything. So.
Okay, I've got another thing that I want to see in this remake, but I feel like I'm hogging all the time here. Does anyone have anything that they want to bring up?
What I think, because I can't really think of anything else like to really change about Fusion, because I really feel like that game is just so good. Like it's hard to think of like improvements for me other than the stuff you just said about the teleportation. Maybe add like. I don't know if like this would detract from the overall experience of the game, but I think like add a prologue maybe. Add a prologue to when Samus encounters that way you really encounters the X for the first time. That way you really feel like the loss of all your items, you know?
I love that actually. I love that. You could oh man, like you could go onto an HD SR 388. That sounds awesome.
Yes.
It can kind of function. It can function similar to like the frigate Orpheon section on Prime, where you have its own self-contained area that you just never revisit.
Yes,
I'm down for that. That sounds cool. And then it's to add to your point about the Orpheon, you're going in full powered. You're going in like all your abilities. It's very cool at the beginning of the game, and you have maybe the best reason in the series for losing all of your abilities. So I could be down with that. Doom,
I love that idea.
Do you have anything that you want to bring up before I just bulldoze onto my next thing here?
Yeah, sure. So this isn't really necessarily a change, but something I would love to see expanded upon, kind of like the SAX. But as people on the podcast might be familiar with, one of the reasons why I love Fusion so much is its approach to environments, specifically the way that the environments evolve over the course of the story, and all sorts of events will happen over the course of the adventure, most notably the power outage in the elevator. And I really want this theoretical Fusion remake to just really like go all in on that and do some really crazy stuff using the power of current generations. One idea that I had even was, what if there was like a hull breach in the BSL and you got sucked out into space and you get access to a new area that you can access in zero gravity, kind of zero gravity, kind of like a 2D version of like what you would do in like Dead Space.
I was going to say
when you're making your way across the Ishimura. I think something like that would be absolutely sick.
I could be down for that. I think like I think you're right. Like when I think about Metroid Dread, one of my favorite sequences is like when the planet is freezing and you got to go and fight Experiment Z57. Like I think Metroid Fusion has like a couple instances like that where, like as you mentioned, the power goes out, or like when Sector 3 is about to explode, or so I could be down with that for sure. I think those little bite size like happenings are very cool.
Yeah, I agree. And that makes me think also like this remake, if it were to be in like Metroid Dread style, because of course it would, like like I think of all the cutscenes that would come in, and a part of me wishes like maybe they don't add that many of them at the same time, because I think a lot of Metroid Fusion's charm was like, oh, I'm about to fall into this pit where this frozen Ridley is, and then it's like it's all still in game, right? And part of that was due to the limitations of the Game Boy Advance, and I feel like stuff like that would kind of like lose its impact if they were to be replaced with cutscenes,
I
like
agree.
yeah, like just the spook. I already forgot the name of this boss, but it's the scariest mother effer, right?
Are you talking
Which one?
Nightmare? That little
Nightmare,
fella,
thank
yeah,
you.
that him.
Yeah, Nightmare. Like just Nightmare all of a sudden just floating in
Yeah.
while you're like figuring out what's going on in this room. I feel like that needs to that stuff needs to like stay. And I feel like that's another problem remakes run into often is forgetting all about the atmosphere of like its original. And a part of the charm of Fusion's atmosphere was like its technical limitations just being on Game Boy Advance. So,
I think I could agree with
more.
that. The first time I saw the like the opening cutscene to Metroid Dread, when you see like the SAX, but it's in like the Dread cutscene,
Yeah.
it wasn't as impactful for whatever reason. But so I think that it is a delicate balance that you need to do, because I think like some of them would be like Nightmare. I think could be cool if it was like a big gruesome cutscene, but like I don't know if I want that for SAX or if I want that for Ridley or for, you know what I mean. So I think I agree
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
And just don't change anything about Ridley's scream. Just keep it
Oh
the
god.
same exact sound with all the crunchy 16-bit noise. It's a 16-bit? I'm not sure how many bits the Game Boy Advance was. However many
I
bits
think he
that
has
was.
1 bit when he's screaming. I don't know.
It sounds like it.
But make that fight more challenging. I will say that, because it's too
Yeah,
easy.
true.
Um,
It is.
okay, so I have something that I want to see. So I think that all the Emmy stuff that we talked about could realistically happen. I think that what we just talked about with environments would happen. I could definitely see that prologue being playable. This one, this is more like just kind of a wish list at this point now. Although, you know what? Actually, no. Before I go to my wish list, I am going to say one thing. And Doom, you know exactly where I'm going. One thing that absolutely is critical, needs to happen in a Metroid Fusion remake, 100% needs to happen, is they need to improve the pacing of this game, so you're not constantly grinding to a complete stop, listening to Adam go on and on and on and on and on. And the way to do that is voice acting. And I know I can hear all the Metroid fans out there scoffing and rolling their eyes, but if you were to go to a navigation room and just really quickly you stand on something and Adam starts talking and you're only losing control for maybe 5 seconds, and you could start walking again, and Adam is just talking to you in the background like a voice file, and you could hear what he's saying, but you can also play at the same time. You don't have to confirm your objection. I hate that. I think that's like a ginormous game changer. Like, ginormous, because there's so many times where you're just like, I just want to play, I just want to explore, and Adam's like, hey, let me tell you about this emergency in Sector 5. And it's like, Adam, I get it, okay? And this, like, on the first playthrough, like, I feel like that's fine, but then in subsequent playthroughs, it's like, oh my god. So I feel like if you had voice acting, that solves, like, so many issues right there with Metroid Fusion's pacing.
Yeah, I'm also team voice acting. Like, I'm always team voice acting.
Yeah.
For Zelda, for Metroid, I'm just like, give me more voice acting. I don't care. Voice acting in Pokemon, for the love of God, right? So, yeah, and I liked the way Metroid Dread handled voice acting, and yeah, just like it, like the only voice coming out of Adam was an actual computer voice, and the Chozo and Samus were all speaking their the native language. That was really cool. And yeah, that would probably potentially mean we hear Samus talk again in English and stuff. So,
I think that's
yeah.
I think that's fine. Like, I think a lot of us are so burned on voice acting in Metroid because the one time we've really had it, it wasn't really done that well. But I like it. That doesn't mean that has to be the only time that we ever get it. Like, we could try again.
Seriously.
And if we had voice acting, my God, it helps the flow of the game. I mean, just I'm begging you, Nintendo, if you do this
Yeah.
remake, this is the one thing you have to do.
And I'm also been like, not to keep interrupting you, Doom. I got one more thing to say. I see you unmuting that, and it's just you're like, Joey shit. But I was thinking that could also be helpful in, not to totally talk about Metroid Prime 4, but one of my wishes for that game is like voiced logbook entries instead of having to pause and read them. Like, maybe some will be readable, but like I want to hear, like, if I'm reading like captain's logs or whatever from like dead Federation troops. I could listen to that while playing. It's a
Yes.
thing. Callisto Protocol had it so I had to pause and listen to these things, and I'm like, it's 2022. I should be able to play and listen to these things at the same time.
Yep. My man. Yep. Amen.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of interesting things about Callisto from all across the aisle, but
Yeah.
that's a conversation for another day. But
Yes.
no, what I was gonna say is actually I totally agree, and not only that, but I think with voice acting, I don't even think you need navigation rooms at this point. I think you can just have Adam just talk to you in
Okay.
like a headpiece, just at certain designated segments of the game when he needs to give you info. Like I don't think we need to even do the whole stop and go at the nav stations. Maybe during the power outage there'd be like an event where it's like, oh, because of the power outage, there's interference and we need to use these nav stations to communicate. But like otherwise, like I don't even see why you need to do that anymore.
When you said no nav rooms, I got like this weird fuzzy warm feeling in my body, and I was like, yeah.
World peace achieved.
Yeah, I just yeah, that's like the biggest thing in this remake to me. Like I think that the SAX rooms would be cool, but if this doesn't have voice acting and I have to keep listening to Adam, like So yeah, I think that could happen, and I think it will happen. I think it has to happen in a remake.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's what I was talking about when I said maybe more of like wishful thinking, but I think that in a Metroid Fusion remake, I think that this is really, and some people are gonna be sick of hearing this, but like I think this is the last chance that you have.
We need
to
microtransactions. Thank you.
That's something the villainous Galactic Federation would introduce.
Oh, R.I.P.
Well, but this is your last chance to do the bad Galactic Federation story. This is it. This is your last chance, and you can do it in Metroid Fusion. You can have with the expanded sectors and the expanded story, you can have expanded moments where you maybe learn a little bit more about the Galactic Federation. You don't have to acknowledge other M if you don't want to. That's fine. But this is your last chance to do this, and like you can have, I don't know, hidden voice logs with the Galactic Federation, but if you ignore it in this sequel, you can't do it. Like it's completely done. And I will say that like Samus Returns did set up the Dark Chozo as we thought for Metroid Dread. So I don't see a reason why they couldn't do this with this game as well. But I think at this point you might need to be a little bit more like specific with how you do this. So like clear some stuff up. Like is it the Galactic Federation as a whole that's bad, or is it like a part of the Galactic Federation that's bad? Give us a definitive clue who this guy, the shadowy dude, could be if he is going to be a part of the game. I think that I don't know that they would do this or not, because part of me feels like Nintendo was just like, well, we did Other M, and that was our Galactic Federation story, and that's how it ended, and now we're going to move on. But I think that they could do it. I don't know if they would, but they could. But I think that you have to really show and like really kind of sell people on this story to get a lot of Metroid fans back into it. And then, like I said, like if you don't do it for this game, like this story is done. You can't do it again. And presumably whatever you do for this game in this remake would set up Metroid 6, would be my estimation. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, I was gonna say, like, so I have a theory based on absolutely zero evidence. This is something I completely made up. But my theory about what's going on with like the whole weirdness regarding the fusion story and kind of the lacking of that being referenced in Dread. My theory is that after the reception of Other M and Federation Force, Nintendo, who notoriously they don't quite get Metroid. They're like they're getting better at it, but they don't quite understand like why people are really loving this series. All they know is that people like certain things and they don't like certain things. And they saw the reception of Other M Federation Force. And in my mind, I almost have this feeling like they're thinking like, okay, obviously these games heavily involve the Federation, so we need to pull back on that stuff. Not understanding that like, no, that's not the full picture. There's a lot more nuance and context there. But I don't know. I don't know whether or not that's true. I could be very well off. That's just
You wouldn't be far off. Corporations just don't get the message a lot. It's like when Disney said, "Oh yeah, the problem with Solo, a Star Wars story, was that someone else played Han." No, that wasn't the problem. So you're not far off in your thinking, I don't think.
I don't know. I can see what you're saying being realistic, but like Nintendo has a lot of smart people there. Like in Reggie Fils-Aime's book, he was like, this other M game just totally missed the mark, and I have to believe that they know why it missed the mark, and I have to believe that they know why Federation Force like wasn't a hit. It's not because it involved the Federation. It's because like they were just not very good games, generally speaking, or very mediocre.
Well, even then, like I remember when Reggie was touring for his book, he was on Kind of Funny. I remember this, and the hosts, it might have been Greg or it might have been Tim. I can't remember which one, but they specifically asked about how did the whole staff like receive like the other M news, because everyone at Nintendo, including Nintendo of America, they thought that they had a bona fide hit on their hands. They thought that this was going to be the game that finally like brought Metroid into the mainstream, and it did the complete opposite. And he was talking about all the theories that he had, and one of his he thought the biggest issue was the pacing of Other M, and it's like, no, that's not why people hate Other M. It's certainly not one of the big reasons that you'll see people list. And
I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't say the pacing is good, but you're right. It's not. That's not why people hate Other M.
Yeah, exactly. It was, even if we put aside the story, which is divisive for some reason, it's bad. The gameplay just wasn't there. It wasn't like anything interesting. It had a really, really weird control scheme. Yeah. Who thought of that control scheme was okay? Who thought switching between first person and third person in that way? That's still like a really cool idea, but the way they implemented it was so poorly done. Like not having to move in first person, what was that? I could rant all day about Other M, but clearly it was not a hit. This game just does not reek this is a hit at all for many reasons, mainly in the story and the gameplay department.
So I will say, to cap off with this, like I don't know. Maybe I'll back up a little bit actually, because in my mind, like Metroid Fusion ended, and there was a very clear insinuation that like Samus is going to be confronting the Galactic Federation in a future game, and I know that we had a lot of people in our community that were disappointed that Dread kind of shifted away from that story. I wasn't like as invested in that story, so I wasn't disappointed, but I know a lot of people were, and I don't know. I just feel like that's a clear insinuation that you get from the ending of Metroid Fusion. So, I mean, like, if you're doing a Metroid Fusion remake and you're not going to deliver on that, I wonder if you, like, can you change the ending of the game or, like, change it subtly? Like, I'm not sure.
I was one of those people who was, like, really... I wasn't saying I was like, oh, Metroid Dread's ruined because they didn't continue the storyline.
Yeah.
But I was kind of baffled that just nothing came from that.
It did seem weird to not even mention it in passing, so you could save it for a future story.
Yeah, and I thought they had the Galactic Federation sent the E.M.M.I for a reason, right? Because I felt like, oh, Samus would have been the first person to hire, but instead, like they cut ties with Samus for whatever reason, and then they brought in the E.M.M.I to do all the lifting. And when the E.M.M.I went missing, like I even think like Adam even says something like there's something really weird about this mission, right? Like it's the cost is like too high or too low?
What was it? He said like the risk is not equal the reward.
The risk is not worth the reward. Yeah. And I just thought, okay, they're probably sending in Samus to die, right? Like it's a trap set up by the Federation. I thought that would have been so cool, but I guess the Federation's still cool with Sam. I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't know, but like I said, like if you want to do this story and if you're going to keep the ending of Metroid Fusion the same, like I think this is your last chance. And if you're not going to do the story, I think you need to tweak in some way the ending of Metroid Fusion to make it seem a lot more like story is closed. Like rather than Samus saying or Adam saying or whoever's like they're gonna hunt us, they're gonna fight us, they're gonna, you know what I mean? You maybe need to tweak that dialogue to just say like, we've done the right thing, and the Galactic Federation is going to give us a promotion. I don't know. Something like that.
All they have to say is like, oh, we're mad at you for doing this, but if we sent people after you, that would look sus on us. So we'll just pretend like this didn't happen, Samus, or whatever.
So yeah,
I feel like you could include a bonus cutscene of like maybe some of the darker Federation operatives behind the scenes. Like it would be something that is out of Samus's POV. And you could like focus on them like plotting something. So that way So that way you could still have it to where Samus is still working with them unbeknownst, thinking that everything is solved, but actually there's something still going. I don't know.
You know what would be so
It's
hype?
all weird.
You know what would be so hype? If this would never happen. This would never happen. If that mystery shadowy guy that Adam AI is talking to, can you imagine if it just like focuses in, zooms in, and it's like Admiral Dane, and it's like, oh no, Admiral Dane is the bad dude.
Chadmiral, not the Chadmiral. No, not my boy. He would never.
Man.
Well,
No, it's the G-Man. Let's be real.
I say that because I can't actually think of another like Galactic Federation personality.
There's
at
like
all.
nobody left. There's like no other. No.
It's
you know
it's
who
that
it
Colonel.
is?
It's that Colonel from Other M.
No, it's the Deleter.
I've gone on record many times as saying I think the Deleter was a great plot line that just wasn't done well, but it could have been cool.
It was. I think in the development, like somebody said, it was completely cut. Like by the end, because they had no time or something.
Yeah,
some crap.
There's
right?
lots of things that Joey, you should check out our episode about the what do we call like the redone story of Other M using the same premise but completely different. Yeah, I think you'd like it.
Yeah, we had we brought
that,
Kiwi Talks on for that episode. That was a good one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Talk.
Yeah, we did.
Gotta love him.
Yeah.
Gotta love him. God bless him. But I was gonna say we all know the Shadowy Man is Anthony Higgs. Like,
can you imagine? Oh my god, that'd be so like some. I actually I wouldn't even mind if like in let's how you were saying like we have a flashback and we're playing the prologue and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I would be hype if like Anthony Higgs was with you or something like that, and like because like on one hand, like yeah, like Other M wasn't great, but I do think that enough time has passed where it's like let's salvage like the positives of Other M, and I think that everybody likes Anthony Higgs, so it's like I would be like, okay, cool, like he's with you.
I hate that he calls Samus princess. I think that's stupid. And
It's
terrible.
so lame, but
yeah, exactly. That was just it's not even. I don't even mind anymore that he like saves Samus. I hate that Samus was like having a PTSD attack and couldn't move. That didn't make any sense to me. But other than that, Anthony Higgs is fine. Like, but also this is one of those things where I'm sure Nintendo will want to distance themselves hard from Other M.
Yeah,
and just never include him again.
I feel confident that we'll never see anything from Other M again. But I would pop off actually if we did see Anthony Higgs or even like. I don't know. You'd never see her ever. But like, what if it was Madeline Bergman or something like that? That would be
it's freaking MB.
Can you imagine?
They still acknowledge Other M existed at the same time. Like it's in Smash Bros for Wii U.
It's in Dread.
It's in Dread. Yeah, the art piece. So that's there. It's canon, and Adam Malkovich in that art piece, which is totally his design from Other M, which I think is his only design, to be fair. But yeah.
I will say too, I think the idea of MB was good. It just wasn't, or the premise was good, but the idea, the execution, not so much. Okay, yeah. So story wise, maybe we need to tweak the ending, or maybe we just go full bore into this Galactic Federation conspiracy. I'm not sure. I would love to see. I know we talked about expanded zones though, but I would really love to see like an expanded restricted zone with like more ground to cover and like. You know what actually would be like really hype, and I'll pitch this idea to you now, and this will never happen. It would never happen, but I was thinking of like, okay, so like we got the Zero mission part in Metroid Zero mission. We got the pre-Queen fight in or the post-Queen fight stuff in Samus Returns. I was like, what would they do after you've beaten the SAX, or like maybe as like an extra something that you could do. I think it would be like so awesome if like maybe it's like a separate game mode, but instead of playing as Samus, you play as the SAX and you're hunting Samus. Like that would be so cool. And like maybe another thing that I want to see in the game too, if they're going to do a remake, which you're told this and it's an incredibly scary moment, but you never really see it, is like when Adam tells you there are 10 SAXs on the ship. If you could see like a couple more of them at once and just be like, oh my god, one of them has been giving me trouble all game, and now there's like 4 of them right here, that would be hype. Or if you could play as the SAX at the end of the game, that would be sweet. This would never happen. You'd never play as the SAX, but man, that'd be cool.
I mean, that'd make for a cool plot twist. You start playing as Samus somewhere else, and then like all of a sudden you realize later on you're playing as the SAX.
Oh my gosh, that would be so. Honestly, that low key, that might be like an even better. That might even be a better intro than the SR388 prequel. You start off playing as Samus, and you think you're doing the mission, but then it's revealed that you're actually the SAX, and then you flash back to, oh man.
You know what? I could
love
be down
that.
with that.
I love
I
it.
could be. And your only clue is the suit. Is just you got the various
Yep.
suit on. Yeah, I like that. I don't think this would ever happen, but I do think that I would like to see in the base game of this Fusion remake, when it happens, not if it happens, but when it happens, I think that we should be able to see like more than one SAX. I think that would be very cool. And while we're at it, while we're saying like about the SAX, I think you got to make that final battle like different or more challenging. Like the second half of that SAX battle is like so weird and like it's not congruent with what you've seen from the SX so far. It's just a big blobby monster, and all he does is hop up and down. It's like, okay, it's a little bit underwhelming or whatever, but like, it's fine. But I want to see something like a little bit, I don't know, cooler. I think if you got rid of that second half and like maybe you were fighting against like a couple SAX and it was like this crazy battle, like that could be cool.
Well, I was gonna say that like I don't know what it's called, but I've seen footage of a ROM hack somewhere where someone actually did have like multiple SAXs chasing you, and it's even more terrifying because the SAXs also upgrade their arsenal like the further you get into it. And so at one point, there's this one scene where this guy's running from like 3 different SAXs in gravity suits and speed boosters, just tearing them down, and it's just I was like, man. That looks horrifying, and I want all of that injected into my veins right now.
Like
my goodness.
That's kind of the thing, is like you fight the SAX at the end of the game, and it's a fully powered version of Samus, but like all it uses is the screw attack, maybe the ice beam, and I think that's it. Like other than that, and you can like easily lure it into like a pattern too, where you can just smoke it, but like it doesn't use a power bomb, so it doesn't use a speed boost, it doesn't use like any like abilities that you might think are like, you know, key Samus abilities. So I think that they could definitely retool that fight to be a little bit more I don't know, engaging, let's just say.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And it was kind of just, I don't want to say a ripoff of Super Metroid's ending, but it was. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna be super powerful now, and you know, that's kind of been the trend. Metroid Dread did the same thing. So
and I feel like I'm okay with that trope. I just want a cool battle to give me that.
I want it to be a little more interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, I have 2 other quick things that I want to throw out at you guys here. Things that just personally I would like to see. I don't know if they'd be in a remake or not. I mentioned earlier, I really love those puzzles where like you shoot like something and then the X comes out and it transforms into another something, and like the one I'm thinking of is like you have to shoot the monster and then it creates the big slimy thing that you have to freeze so you can speed boost across. I really like those puzzles, and I wish that there were more of those kind of interactions in Metroid Fusion. So I'm hoping that they would ramp that up. And then Doom, you could take this next one away, but man, they got to do something about that music.
Well, we have very disagreeing points on the music, which we talked about last time on the episode. But I was about to say, when it comes to music, you know, after Metroid Dread, I'm sorry, Soshiabi Soyaki Doi, out of here, Dunzo, gone.
Wow, fire!
For the Fusion remake, we're bringing back Minako Hamano once again to reprise her role as lead composer, who was also one of the composers on Super Metroid. Fun fact for those who don't know. And you know, while he was a sound director, he didn't do any compositions. We're also bringing in my man's Kenji Yamamoto as well.
That's
because
right.
He's the goat.
Put some respect.
I was expecting that to be the first 5 words out of your mouth when I threw to you about music.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Dragon Ball composer Kenji Yamamoto, who was caught plagiarizing. Not to be confused with that one. This is a good Kenji Yamamoto here,
right?
And so yeah, everybody on the podcast already knows how much I adore the work of Yamamoto-san. And for those who don't, you are all feel free to check out my musical analysis that I released on Prime's 20th anniversary, entitled "Metroid Prime: A Soundtrack Ahead of Its Time." Shameless plug.
This
and
guy.
everything.
God, your plugging skills are they're bringing a tear to my eye. Okay, so that's all I have for my wish list for Metroid Fusion remake. Did we leave anything out? Anything you guys want to bring up that you'd like to see?
No, I think we're good.
More of the dread quality of life improvements. Bring the slide, please.
Oh, has to be.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Just dread gameplay. Put dread gameplay in. Remake all the 2D Metroids and give them dread gameplay.
100%.
Yeah, give me dash counters. Even though Aeon abilities aren't a thing in Fusion, I don't care. Give me the flash shift. I don't care. I can't live without it now.
Yeah, I didn't even bring it up because I think it's just like an absolute foregone conclusion. Like, this game is going to use the Dread engine. It's going to have the slide. It's going to have the flash shift. It's going to have some of those cool expansions that and abilities that we saw in Metroid Dread. That has to happen. Has to happen. They could never release. I don't think they could ever release a 2D Metroid game again without a slide. I really think that.
Never again. Never again.
The cat's already out of the bag.
Yeah, you can't put it back. Like I was actually playing a ROM hack of Super Metroid during the Game Awards because they lost me for a bit, and I was just like, oh, I hate pressing down twice to get into the morph ball now. It's been ruined by Dread. So yeah, they have to do it. They got to do it.
Can never play Metroid again without a slide. I'm just kidding.
but not really. Like actually,
I'm not. Well, I'm talking about like I can't go back ever again. Play those games because they can't patch a slide in. How dare they?
They should patch a slide into Super Metroid Nintendo Switch Online. That'd be pretty sweet. All right, so yeah, there it is. Our Metroid Fusion Dream remake. Some of it I think is plausible. Some of it is maybe a bit far-fetched. But I don't know if all those things come together. I'm thinking that could be a pretty decent Metroid game. So and Metroid Fusion for me. I love Metroid Fusion, but it is on the lower end of my Metroid scale. But I think if we had some of these augmentations, let's call them, it could be like top tier, like top spot Metroid game. I don't know. I'd love to see it, and I think this is gonna happen. I really think this is gonna happen. So we'll see.
We shall see.
Joey, thanks
regardless.
You go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, regardless what happens, if Mercury Steam is developing it, I'm confident that it's going to be at least like a good game.
Yeah,
because even Samus Returns, while I am more critical of that than most people, it's still a great game at the end of the day that everyone should play.
Yeah, 100%. Samus Returns is awesome. I don't know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Port that to Switch.
Right?
Please.
Yes.
I think we have a pinned message in our Discord server from, I don't know, at least 2 years ago now that I said like Samus Returns is coming to Switch, mark my words, and I don't know how that one's looking so far, but
right.
maybe
I remember
one day.
I remember people telling me I'm gonna hold off on Samus Returns until it comes to Switch. It's been 5 years now.
But they should do it. They should do it.
They should.
Do it before the eShop closes.
Yeah,
oh God,
no doubt. Joey, thanks for joining us, my friend. Tell everybody where they can check you out, what your projects are, where we could get more of you on the internet.
Well, first of all, thank you all so much for having me. It's been really fun talking about Metroid.
Yeah.
Invite me on again. I'll probably be on again in like maybe 3 years with my schedule, right? But yeah, you can find me over on GameXplain. Don't really have any really big projects in the works because we're just wrapping up the year. But yeah, feel free to check me out there. I have quite a few Metroid videos on the channel, including a little bit of a kind of a 20th anniversary thing for Metroid Prime, and I have I think it's a really good retro review of Metroid Fusion, but we're gonna save the retro review of Metroid Prime until closer to Prime 4. That's what I'm thinking at least. Nobody steal my idea.
That is a good team. We got so many good plugs all over this show here. That warm and fuzzy feeling is coming back. No navigation rooms and all the plugs. I love it. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get out of here. Of course, we want to encourage everybody to check out OmegaMetroid.com. We have got all of your Metroid needs, guides, maps, news, all that jazz there. And you can get yourself a snazzy shirt like Doom is wearing right now if you're watching us on YouTube, which you should be. And yeah, check us out wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, recommend, 5-star review, all that fun stuff. You know the drill. Check us out over on Twitter. You can check us out at Omega Metroid Pod. I'm at Spiteri316. Doom is at Doominal Cross, and our man Joey is at Ferris Wheel Pro. So make sure to give him and GameXplain a follow as well. I've been following GameXplain for a long time, so love your guys' stuff. That's it. We're out of here. We're gonna be back next week ranking the bosses of Metroid Fusion. So I just said Metroid Fusion is on the lower end of my Metroid scale, but when it comes to bosses, it might be the top. So I'm really looking forward to that. Until then, everybody, take care.